Good afternoon, Santa Clarita, and everyone listening in from around the world. You are listening to the Grief Recovery Hour with Sharon Brubaker right here at KHTS, your hometown station. I'm so honored to have you. Grief Recovery Hour is live on Facebook. Please feel free to join in, ask us some questions, and my handy, mighty assistant, Cody, will pass those on to me. They will all be anonymous, and we'll try to get them answered through the show. If you are listening to this program, there's a high probability that your heart is broken. It could be from a grief that happened recent or long ago. It could be from a feeling that your life is just not as happy or fulfilling as you'd like it to be. Regardless of the cause of your broken heart, I do not know how you feel. I do know what a broken heart feels like, and it is not good. I hope that through this hour, I'm able to guide you and lead you in some way and let you know that there is hope out there for you. Today, I have an amazing guest. I'm so excited to get to know him better. I have known Rick Ferrante from around town, and Rick is the owner of Home Care Services in Santa Clarita. And before I start with anything, I want to say that you also do a community service, which I think is really cool. And I don't know if a lot of people know about that, but you have a very large office, and you often lend out part of your office. And I know there's a lot of events. I'm always seeing events taking place there. And so as a community member, just want to say thank you and give you a shout out. Rick, I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us exactly how you got into. First, tell us who you are.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's Rick Ferrante, and
Yes.
in Home Care Services, like you said. I've lived up here since 1991. So certainly community-wise, and myself, my family, raised my family up here. Just like everybody else, I was a Valley transplant and came up here because it was cheap, right, Sharon?
Yes, it was cheap.
It was so much less expensive than the Valley, and then you worked down there and drove up here with everybody else. It's not quite as cheap as it used to be.
No.
You look around, but I think we've kind of caught up. But that's basically background-wise as who I am in terms of my connection here, Santa Clarita. I've been up here a long time. Did a lot of things, raised my family up here, coached, and did all the things that you would normally think of. Most of them, let's see, 3/4 empty nest now, so we're getting there. Still have one at Saugus High School, and then 3 that are in college or graduated. And then if anybody listening is, Valencia High School or something else, we can still be friends. But I am
that's nice of you, Rick.
Saugus High School family. So anyway, yeah, the idea here is what you had talked about in terms of community. Yes, we have an office here. It's over on Cinema Drive.
Yes.
And, we do home care. We do in-home care. And so it's a little bit difficult. I have a lot of people that we connect with, and you want to be able to provide services or things to the community. And if you sell shoes or you sell something, right, you can, or if you're a restaurant or whatever, you can give away some food. We do in-home care. It's a little hard to give away, here, have a caregiver for a little bit. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, right? So we do have that office, and it's something if people want to, it's very reasonably priced, or if it's a nonprofit, we just let them use it. So as long as it's there's no conflict, we let them use that. As far as who we are in terms of home care services, so we provide in-home care. It's caregivers who provide assistance with what we call activities of daily living for seniors or others. Doesn't have to be just seniors, but seniors or others who need that assistance in their home. And, basically the idea here is that there are a lot of people who, and we'll kind of go through this, have various issues or conditions that, and families that are finding that their parent or grandparent or whoever it is transitioning into a period where they just need some help.
Right.
And what most people want to do, Sharon, is stay at home.
Yes.
It is very difficult for somebody, especially in that circumstance where they're starting to need help, to then, up and move them to some place that they have this, completely different environment. They want to be able to stay at home, but need some help. And what ends up happening with families is they are in a position then, they can either try to help themselves or do something like a move or something like this. This is one of those options where to having somebody come in, understand and recognize what's going on, help manage that process of assisting. And it evolves, and, things change and things, it's a journey. But that's what we do as far as, the services. We have case manager comes in, sits down and talks and says, okay, what is our situation here?
Right.
Figure it out, and let's go from there. And a lot of times it's well, I say that, but it's all kinds of things. It could be respite on certain times that need help, or it could be a 24-hour thing. It could be a few days a week, and everything in between.
Right.
And then the needs are different. People can be really have some really severe issues, mobility and medical issues. Other times, maybe it's just companionship, maybe just getting around, maybe have issues with driving or medication management. We do bathing, dressing, cooking, cleaning, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of these ADLs, activities of daily living, that can be challenging for someone who's
Absolutely.
a senior. And so instead of saying, well, let's just throw in the towel and move to an assisted living, which at some point that is the appropriate thing to do, but for many people, for a long period of time, they don't need to do that. They don't need to go to a nursing home and to some a facility or a community. They want to be at home and just need some help.
How did you come up with the idea to start home care services, and how is this your career? I really want to know.
Well, I'm certainly not the creator of this. There are plenty of other. It's been around for a long time,
Right.
and longer than home care services has been, and it's quite an industry. Just like many other people, and I'm sure it's really hard to find somebody that either hasn't been in a position where they've
Right.
kind of needed this, or is now, or will be soon.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
almost hard to find, right?
Exactly.
Somebody that isn't. So just like that, I've been, had connections with family members that have been through different things, different family members, and with different kinds of stages.
Right.
Okay? All the way through from like I said, somebody just needs companionship to family members that needed all the way to hospice and some kind of really intense things and everything in between. And we went through that gamut of trying to find people and trying to find qualified people, and then having that worry and that issue of hiring somebody privately and being an employer, and really dealing with those challenges
Yes.
and those struggles. So it is tough, and it becomes a real problem, and it can be a financial liability and issue. It can be an emotional and just time-consuming thing. There's a lot of aspects to it.
Right.
So when we found, agency or agencies over time, there's different ones, but that we're good at what this is. It's a real burden lifter and can really help. What ends up happening, Sharon, is that a family member has a role, right?
Right.
You're a son, you're
Yeah.
a daughter, you're a grandson, granddaughter, whatever. When you become a caregiver, you switch roles.
Yeah.
And I don't care what you do, you become somebody that you weren't really trained to be, right? Or really didn't grow up to be, and now you are something different. And two things happen, or a bunch of things happen. Again, you're not trained for this, so it gets really frustrating. It's
Very.
something I haven't been through, and it's challenging. I got to learn the ropes here. It's like learning another profession.
Right.
You and I are good at what we do, but we've got to care for my mom or dad or whatever in a lot of things, that very personal things, toileting, bathing, dressing,
Right.
right? This is a challenge, and we're not trained to do it. So that's one thing. But the other one, and I'm sure you've seen these kinds of things in which you do, is that role, that person who was the son or daughter now becoming the caregiver, that senior has effectively lost that son or daughter relationship.
Yeah.
Okay? You can't do and be both.
No.
And if you try, then one or the other is going to kind of not work.
Right.
Okay? And what ends up happening is when somebody comes in with a caregiver, like in what we do, and this is what I saw when we were going through this, is that, okay, now I no longer have to bathe, I no longer have to dress, I no
Right.
longer have to do all these, some toileting and mobility and medication, whatever. Now I get to be the son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, whatever it is.
Right. My role.
My role, which is what I know, what I guess you'd say I'm good at, and then is really helpful for that senior, because they don't want to lose that. That is, think about it, right? If you were the senior and you got the roles reversed, is that what you want? You want somebody that, I want
Yeah.
right? I want my relationship
No one had
that I
ever
have.
I've never heard that before, but now just going through my own personal experience when my father got sick, that's exactly what happened. I was not the daughter. I became the caretaker, and he actually pushed back a little bit on with all of us, because he was really the leader and the guider in the family. So it was kind of
Put
different. Hearing
yourself,
that
yeah,
made me see that.
in those shoes of that senior and say, is that what I would want?
Yeah.
What would be my preference?
Yeah.
So a lot of people, again, preference to be at home,
Yes.
preference to have that care if they need. Now, there's a lot of resistance to it, right? Because you and I and everybody else want to be independent.
Right.
And when we're going to push back even on that. But in addition to that, if you add on the fact that now I've got my child or grandchild or whoever it is,
Right.
or niece or nephew, doing that care, that's even more difficult. And again, you lose something there. So that's what we provide. We provide those people to be able to retain those roles
Right.
that are really critical for everybody in that family. When we go in, this is a family thing, Sharon. This isn't. We don't just sit and talk with senior. It is a whole
Everybody's
thing.
there.
Man, it comes out better at the end. And I saw that when the original question here was how you got into this. I saw it many times. And so that was where I wanted to kind of get into in terms of not just, using those services, but to be able to provide them as a business.
So I'm going to ask you another question, and that is this your care just for seniors?
No, yeah, it's mostly just because that's naturally
Right.
what ends up happening, but it's anyone, it's adults.
Okay.
The only thing that we don't care for is children. That's a whole different, it's child care.
Yes.
So adults. So yes, there are people that we have cared for, and we do care for that have maybe debilitating injuries or diseases, MS or something like that.
Okay.
Tough situations, just like any other. And yes, it would be any adult. It just naturally is going to be a majority is going to be seniors.
Now, before you make the decision to keep the loved one at home, because that's probably where they want to be, or it's what you want, one, how do you come to that decision? And two, is this something we should talk about way ahead of time so that when it does happen, and I'm asking you this question out of personal experience, that we got right to the end with my dad, and it almost felt like, now that I'm reliving this in my brain, we were shuffling to try to figure it out at the time that it was needed. And by then, he was less than verbal, and so we were kind of making the decisions on our own. So what's your advice in that area?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Number one, think about a couple of elements here. First of all, everybody goes through this. Not everybody, but anybody that's doing this,
Right.
you're not alone. This is exactly the kind of thing that happens. So don't feel like you're kind of this, out there in left field. Number two, there's no silver bullet to this. There's no magic words that I can tell you.
Right.
That is magically going to make this situation. The magic would be make it go away and make me back to what everything was before.
Right.
Right. So this is a transition thing. One of the things that you had just talked about that is a key, that is half the time or most of the time people don't, is that early kind of discussion, conversation.
Right.
I mean, myself going through this, everybody going through this, it is a completely different scenario when we're talking to somebody who has a plan.
Wow.
Okay. I get two kinds of calls, right? One call is my mom, dad, whoever it is, dealing with this situation a lot of times, whatever, it could be discharged from the hospital. So it's kind of urgent thing, or maybe I'm just starting to see some things happen, whatever. And, it's kind of time. And what we do know, we want to have, people come in. We're not sure all the details, but we want to have people come in. We want to be able to help here. We want to do that. We know we don't want to go into here. We kind of financially and the whole thing, we have this plan together. Now, it's never perfect, right? And it never comes out exactly what you think. But that's one call. And yeah, it's tough. It's an emotional thing, and it's challenging. But it is one type of call. And so now we're just putting our plan into action.
Yeah.
And as challenging as it is, that plan into action then takes away that burden of even kind of going through the process of thinking of everything, like you said.
Yeah.
That you were talking about with your dad. Then here's the second call. same scenario. My parents just been discharged, or I have, I've noticed these problem things, that they're having. They can't drive now. They can't do this. They can't, whatever the situation. And I don't know what to do.
Right.
On an entirely different conversation, and in a very troubling one, because you've got to kind of start from the beginning. And if you haven't thought it through first.
Right.
I mean, even if it's just the high level stuff, think it through first. How is this going to work in terms of family dynamics? Who's doing what, where?
Yeah.
Where's the money coming from?
Exactly.
Okay. How is that all? Who are the professionals we need to be getting involved here? Medical people, people like us for home care, legal. Right. You've got trusts, estate planning, advanced care directives, powers of attorney, all of that.
Yeah.
Wow, what a difference when that happens earlier. And even if you say, oh man, I should have done it 20 years ago, and now I'm just still showing, maybe it's going to be a year from now. We'll do it now. Right. There's never a time when it's too late. It's, tomorrow's the too late.
Yeah, exactly. Or where you're right there having to make that decision.
So kind of direct answer to your question is in some of the things that we talk about when people maybe don't have that plan or have some resistance to home care or assisted living or whatever that transition is. Most of the time, people look at this as somebody doing something to them, meaning somebody's going to come and take my independence away, whether it's a family member or whatever it is. And then it's kind of just about me. And if it's about me, I don't want that. I've thought it through. I don't want that. Right. I just decided.
I'm not taking that.
And you're talking about me, right? So what we usually tell people is, look, you know what? And this is reality. It isn't just about you.
Right.
Okay. The impact of what's going on here is impacting, let's say I'm talking to my mom, right? Mom, the impact here isn't just on you. The impact's on me. Yeah. I got to drive you around. I've got to go to the doctors with you. I've got the, you know what? We've got family, we've got jobs, the whole thing. So when most people are naturally selfless like that. Oh, you mean really that's what's happening? I'm affecting you? Right. And that changes the conversation. Not always. Yeah. But often that's the case where it's turn this around a little bit. This isn't just about you. This is about all of us. Me, my siblings.
It affects every single person, even down to the grandchildren. Now, just real quick before we take our break, I hear a lot about people living longer. And I look at my own life, right? So my mother is still alive and she lives with me. And then there's myself, my daughter, and my granddaughter. So that's 4 generations right there. People are definitely living longer. And I'm thinking that we didn't have exact plans for so we see a lot of families coming back together to live because they didn't have plans for certain things like that. How's that affecting Santa Clarita right now? What are the statistics here in Santa Clarita?
Yeah, good question, but you put me on the spot with statistics. I don't know in terms of statistics, but I'll tell you what we see. We see a ton of that. Yeah. Where these multi-generational families are, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with it. No. Right? Okay, so people are like, oh my God, this is terrible. No, you know what? They can work. But here's the problem. We didn't go into it thinking that's going to be the case. Right. So in terms of the various things, whether it's care, whether it's financial, whether it's all these other elements on just day-to-day living activities, again, if we didn't go into this with a plan and kind of our eyes open, right, big problem. And so what we generally tell people is, whether there's home care involved or not, or assisted living, anything, is, this multi-generational situation, you weren't trained for this. Right. So let's step back and let's put this down on paper or whatever, and we help with that all the time. Something to definitely think about.
Definitely something to think about. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about grief and the caregiver. Thank you.
Why do people from all over Santa Clarita come to our spa in Canyon Country? Simple. They want the highest quality services at prices that everyone can afford. This is Rosemary from Beyond Harmony Med Spa. Read our reviews and know why we won the Ultimate Beauty Awards 2 years in a row by the readers of Elite magazine. Come and see how close we really are and experience the level of excellence that our clients have loved for the past 13 years. Go to beyondharmony.com or call 298-8008 today for a free consultation.
This weekend, it's fun for your entire family at the KHTS Home and Garden Show and Crafts Fair at Central Park. Admission is free, featuring 500 of Santa Clarita's leading vendors. It's fun for the kids with a petting zoo, pony rides, and pig races. Go on a tasting tour at our parade of award-winning food trucks. On Saturday, join the excitement at the Emergency Expo and Arbor Day celebration, where you can catch the fire department demolish a car this Saturday and Sunday at Central Park. Full details at SantaClaritaHomeshow.com.
What's the perfect way to end the weekend? Sunday brunch at Salt Creek Grill, of course. Wind down with delectable dishes off Salt Creek's award-winning menu and enjoy a glass of champagne, because after all, you deserve it. Make Sunday brunch at Salt Creek Grill a new tradition with your family and friends. Salt Creek Grill in Valencia on Town Center Drive in front of the movie theater. For reservations, 222-9999 or go online to saltcreekgrill.com.
If you're in danger of losing your home to foreclosure, you need an expert. Hi, I'm Rich Sherman with Alta Realty. I've helped hundreds of Santa Clarita residents save their homes completely for free. I've got just over 20 years experience and a loan modification success rate of over 80%. I can negotiate better terms with your bank, and I can save your home from foreclosure. And again, we do this completely for free. So if you're in any danger, please call me today at 661-714-1400. That number again is 661-714-1400. I'm Rich Sherman with Alta Realty, and I'll be happy to help you save your home for free.
There's only one Santa Clarita plastic surgeon who is Yale trained and board certified, Dr. Justin Heller.
To be a board certified plastic surgeon like myself, what that truly entails is about 5 to 7 years of honed surgical training in reconstructive, all areas, as well as aesthetics, which means your facelifts, your breast augmentations, your body contouring, true training, and board certification. In fact, that's the only board certified area that can be achieved in this realm.
Dr. Justin Heller, warm, understanding, always available for guidance because he's local. HellerPlasticSurgery.com.
Moving Day North Los Angeles, a walk for Parkinson's, is coming up April 28th at Valencia Heritage Park. More than just a walk, Moving Day is a fun and inspiring fundraising event that celebrates exercise and unites the community in the fight against Parkinson's disease. Let's get moving. Join the Parkinson's Foundation for Moving Day North Los Angeles, Saturday, April 28th. Register today at movingdaynorthla.org.
Welcome back. You are back with the Grief Recovery Hour with Sharon right here at KHTS on your hometown station. And my guest is Rick Ferrante with Home Care Services of Santa Clarita. And prior to the break, we were discussing just senior care and making the decision between having someone in home or out of home, and just really amazing information. Thank you so much, Rick, for sharing that. We're going to segue into the second section and actually discuss grief and the changing that happens in our lives and how it affects not only the senior, but the family, the caregivers. It's all around. And before we get to that, I want to remind everyone we are Facebook Live, so feel free to share some love and give me a like. I would really appreciate that, and we'll answer any questions that we can. Also, I'm going to be putting Rick's information in the feed down below, so if you guys ever want to get in touch with him, it'll be right there. Rick, we know for a fact as grief recovery specialists that there are 43 known losses that a person can experience over a lifetime. Death and divorce are just the most common. But I actually saw my dad go through a grieving experience with his life having to change. And I remember when he was first put on palliative care and the home coordinator came to the house and she did a interview and filled out all the paperwork, and when she left and he looked at me and he said, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. I don't need that. And I have a sister who's a nurse practitioner, and she and I discussed it and we decided yes, we were going to move forward with it. But that was a grieving experience. That was a new normal for us. That was a new level. We had come down to this new level, and so it was actually, it broke my heart. It was one of the parts that really stuck with me after my dad passed away. But I want you to shed the light a little bit on what that experience has been for you, what you're seeing actually.
You know, if you ask, I've seen these surveys, and you ask seniors, what's the number one thing you fear? Okay, as you grow older, right? All these different things. And you would expect things like, death, illness, or, those kinds of things, losing loved ones as we age and all that kind of thing. And what actually ends up happening, or if you look at these surveys, the number one thing is actually loss of independence.
Yeah.
And what you look at is that the emotional factor here, it's a little confusing to people. Here I am, you have a senior, here I am, what I'm trying to do is help you.
Right.
Okay, I'm trying to help you get through the day. I'm trying to help you with those activities of living, right, that you're struggling with and that you have some issues with, and I'm trying to help you. So the reaction you expect from helping somebody,
right?
When's the last time the reaction of helping somebody was something negative, right?
Don't help me.
Yeah, it doesn't, that generally doesn't factor. Well, the reason is because in this circumstance, what you just described is, you're taking away your father's independence.
Right.
And that is that number one thing.
Right.
So, okay, so now if we recognize that, which is, as you, I'm sure, can attest to, that is that first step here. Recognize what's happening.
Yes.
I think half or, a big portion of what we're talking about right now with families and looking at and dealing with a loved one when they're needing some assistance is recognition that this is what's happening.
Yes.
For better, for worse, and for just necessary situation, you're taking away some independence. Recognize that. So that's the first thing. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm not just helping you. I'm taking away independence.
Right.
So I've got to be cognizant and aware of that as I work through this so that I'm not, making that even more extreme than it needs to be. And I'm not, I'm trying to emphasize the point, again, kind of flipping this on its way back. You're trying to help me because I'm trying to, I have to assist you, and that's just the way this is.
Right.
But if you recognize it, that's that first step. And then the next one is recognize when you have to do this, and whether it's a caregiver or you're helping them or assisted living, whatever, that there is going to be an emotional component to that is grief.
Yes.
Okay, there is a loss there.
Absolutely.
And I look at, if I'm looking at myself and I have this whatever, and I remember, stories, we can tell client stories all day long, but I even remember my own aunt. The biggest thing was the loss of driving. She drove exactly 1 mile between my uncle's house and my parents' house. And that was it. She didn't drive anything else. She didn't go down to the store. Somebody took her to the store. Caregiver took her to the store. Caregiver took her here. They took her everywhere else. It was these side streets. There was one signal and like 2 stop signs, and then that's it. Just little side streets. But she refused to not
give
do
that
that.
up.
Yeah. So it was a massive thing. And what my parents recognized and understood, and my uncle, this was their sister, was that was important to her.
Yes.
And basically she drove the caregiver that route. The caregiver drove her everywhere else, but she drove that one route.
Right.
What that was independence.
Yes.
And so what it did is kind of helped ease that loss, a loss of independence. So I guess the message would be that as a family member, recognize that is what's so important to people. And then if you stop and think about it, you'll realize, yeah, you're right, because that would be the most important to me.
Yeah, that is true.
Right? So recognize it, realize it, and then start operating in a way that you recognize, I'm taking something here.
Yeah.
Often it's a lot about, let's involve that person in those choices.
That was going to be my question.
Some options.
Yeah.
Okay? Maybe, as little as, colors or timing or this or that or whatever you call it. Control of those options is being more independent, and so you want to be able to bring that person along with you as opposed to controlling them.
I love the way when we would be at the doctor's office and I would say, well, I think it's time for him to have oxygen, or my dad needs a wheelchair. The doctor would always turn to him and say, Mr. Honore, is that what you want? So they always pose the question to him. So that's exactly what you're saying, is that ask them, set it up, and get their input on how their care is going to be changing.
Absolutely. Hey, gang, let's be. This is a reality. These are not kids.
Right.
These are not children.
Yeah.
This is maybe somebody who has some challenges, even some cognitive challenges, some, maybe it's Alzheimer's or something. But regardless, I believe, and we always work this way with our case management and our caregivers, et cetera, that these are people with dignity and need to be treated with respect, the respect that they deserve as being an adult and a person that is intelligent and has a lot to contribute. Yes, there are some things here that need to be assisted with, but if you keep that in mind all the way through, then you won't make that mistake of saying, treating them like a child.
Yeah. You shared with me last week about a beautiful client that you had that getting her hair done and makeup done was so important. Can you share a little bit of that story?
Yeah, it's interesting. When you think about care, and this is, I guess this kind of flows in with the independence and everything else, but when you think about care, what do you think about? Bathing, dressing, and all those kinds of things. And then, so you think about those activities that really affect people in their day-to-day life. But what we have to recognize is that there's a lot of things here that affect, and a lot of them are social aspects and just enjoyment and things like that. Those are the things that, as much as the medical side is important, those are the things that could be more important even to that person. So the story that you described, I remember one of our case managers spending all this time, they're doing intense stuff here, trying to arrange things and help things that are medically related kind of stuff. We don't do the medical things, but we help coordinate all this and help our caregivers figure all this out and the bathing and dressing and all that stuff. But she's spending all this time finding a hairdresser that would come to the house instead of going to, having to go to that salon.
Right.
And I said, she must have spent an hour on this, right? I mean, the client was out in the sticks, out there somewhere, and had to find somebody that'll drive out on a certain day and that kind of thing. And I'm like, what's going on? And she says, what you don't understand is this was incredibly important to this person. And, having her hair done and her makeup and her nails or whatever, all the things that she was doing at this hairdresser was incredibly, incredibly important.
Right.
So just as getting this wheelchair or getting this, this medication right or getting all these other things together, this is critical.
Right.
And it absolutely was. Once she was able to kind of, that's back to being myself.
Yes.
Right? Every week, get that hairdresser and I do the hair and the whole thing. And so, that's what they ended up doing is finding that hairdresser. And it was a big deal. And you see it all the time with all kinds of different things like that. Don't forget, and, this was part of it too. And we were trying to figure out, we had another one, this lady who, I don't want to, privacy-wise.
Yeah, of course.
She was, I'm going to throw out a country, Russia. She was Russian. She wasn't, but I'm going to say that's what she was. And she taught Russian, the language. She taught it. And so there was a whole thing where the caregiver would end up just taking her to the library so she can teach a Russian class.
Oh.
There was maybe like one person out there learning this Russian, right? Or nobody, or whatever, it was just the caregiver. But she was able to actually do that, and it just brought her to life.
Yes.
And so those are the little things, and what I would ask people do is to look at those kinds of little things that you think are little that aren't. And this goes back to that grief. Think about what all these things that we all think of as little that you're losing when this happens. Yeah. That's where a lot of that grief comes from.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can kind of keep that in mind and find a different way.
Yeah. And on the tail end of that, experiencing it from the family perspective. So every time he dropped to the new normal, so for example, when he couldn't no longer walk into the kitchen to have his meal served, and we had to bring him, that was a new normal. When the day he stopped talking was a new normal. That was a grief for us. And so that was something that we as a family were dealing with as well. And that's something that I would think your caregivers are attuned to, looking for and helping through.
Yeah, what ends up happening, here's the way this works is, and obviously as caregivers and as case managers, we would really welcome to have professionals like yourself in these situations where there's grief. We're not therapists. We're not the kind of training that you have. So yes, they can help. But in a sense, what's really happens is when you have a caregiver or somebody that is cognizant of what's going on and make sure that we understand what's happening, what ends up happening is we relieve some of that burden from that family. Now, it's not the burden that you're talking about of relieving that grief, because the situation still is what it is.
Absolutely.
None of that's changed.
No.
Okay? Let's not pretend that because you have a caregiver, everybody's like magically cured now. But they relieve that burden of that, oh my gosh, now all this stuff. I mean, that's a lot of stress and pressure. If you can relieve that, then they can kind of address their own grief.
Yeah.
It's almost like a resource thing, a time thing.
Yes.
Now I can process this.
Yes.
And I've covered something here that is the safety and care of my loved one. Then yes, you got to look towards yourself, which they've lost independence, they're losing this, they're losing that. You're also losing what that normal was before.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you have to kind of accept and recognize that yourself and then start to process it yourself.
Right.
What we've kind of do with care is give you some of that space to be able to do it.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. It definitely gives you that space. Now, segueing into the caregiver, quite often the caregiver has been the original or the same caregiver for many years, and now they become a member of the family.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now they're in as a member of the family. They're taking care of Grandma Barbara, and she starts to get in ill health, and the caregiver can actually have a loss experience as well, a grieving experience.
Yeah. And that happens often, especially with you have somebody that's a private caregiver. There's a lot of challenges with hiring somebody privately, and there's a lot of liability and things like that. So you've got to be very, very careful. It's very dangerous. But regardless, whether it's professional or not, yes, people are naturally going to get attached, right? If they care, which we do a lot of screening, but those in this business, that's what they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in this business. They're not making millions here, so they're doing this because they care. When they do, you've got that attachment, and they have to really learn, especially professionally, to compartmentalize. I mean, they'll go from one to another, and they'll lose this person and go to that next. So there is that level, and I think what over time what we have recognized is, and you've probably seen this in things like hospice nurses, people that work in a hospital, where you have to mentally be able to do this. Not everybody can. Yeah. Turn that mental thing into saying put hospice as an example. You're dealing with someone who's dying. Right. What are you actually doing? You can either attach yourself to that person who's dying and kind of in your mind kind of dying with them, or you can turn this around and say, what I'm doing is I'm helping this journey. Yeah. Okay? Into the most positive thing that I can make it for them and for that family. Yeah. And I see this all the time. Yeah. Caregivers will come in and they, all these negative things. So-and-so couldn't do this or can't do that, could not cook or couldn't clean up this stuff, couldn't do their laundry, whatever. And then they say, you know what, we're going to make this a game of this. Or we're going to do something that kind of helps them get through that. Let's cook something different or a different way. I'm going to show you something I've got. They go through this and they come back. Guess what hasn't happened? They haven't been cured. They still can't do those activities. Right. So let's not pretend that something magic here has happened. Right. But that caregiver comes back and says, you know what, that felt awesome. Yes. Yeah, that felt really cool. I helped through this journey. Yeah. I haven't changed it. Right. I haven't altered it. I have helped through this journey. And I agree with that 100%. And I have worked with a couple of caregivers that absolutely had to go through the grief recovery process to complete their relationship with their patients and with their clients. And my experience with hospice for ourselves was that our hospice nurse absolutely fell in love with us, and she became like a member of the family. And it was kind of cool because we got to the point where we really started to rely on her and her expertise. And even afterwards, seeing her was a fond feeling. So it was kind of cool that the way that happens, right? I tell my case managers all when they come aboard. I say, look, there's the best part of this job and the worst part of this job. the best part of this job is you get to go home every day and know that you help people. I mean,
Right.
genuinely, and they are very appreciative, and it feels great, what you just said.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of that connecting, and you've helped somebody. And I tell them the worst part of this job is you're dealing in a situation where it's tough.
Yes.
It's challenging, and you're going to go to a lot of memorials. You're going to deal with situations where this journey is going in a direction
Yes.
that is not always positive. Now, sometimes there is, better, and people get better and so on. But in general, this is that kind of thing that you've got to be able to kind of handle, and that is the worst
Right.
part. So you're right. There is this two sides.
Yeah.
If you can kind of put yourself into the first side,
Right.
even during that negative kind of the journey, I'm helping get there better.
Yeah.
You're going to be a better spot.
Awesome. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Sharon Brubaker at the Grief Recovery Hour at KHTS, your hometown station.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top quality musicals and plays. Located on Main Street in Old Town Newhall, CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go online to canyontheater.org.
Men, are you feeling tired, stressed, or just don't have the energy you used to? Did you know this could be related to decreased testosterone levels? Luckily, there's a safe, effective solution. Weeder Prime helps support healthy testosterone levels with clinically tested key ingredients. Just 2 capsules of Weeder Prime each day can help change your mood, energy, focus, body fat, and lean muscle. Feel the way you felt 10, 20, even 30 years ago. Rediscover your Prime with Weeder Prime. To find a retailer near you, visit WeederPrime.com. That's WEIDER Prime.com.
Buying your home can sometimes be challenging. That's why Charlene Gill with CSMC Mortgage is your Santa Clarita mortgage expert. What's important to you is to secure a loan at the best possible rate, to have a professional guide you through the process, and to close on time. Charlene's 23 years in the mortgage industry and her personal expert knowledge in the Santa Clarita Valley makes her your mortgage expert. Contact Charlene at hometownstation.com/Charlene. That's hometownstation.com/Charlene.
All-Star Sports Grills is the best place in town to catch a Dodger game on one of their 17 screens and choose a cold one from 23 different tap beers. All-Star Sports Grills prides itself on their fresh, made-to-order menu, including half-pound Angus burgers. Enjoy an all-star comedy show the 4th Wednesday of the month. All-Star Sports has a pet-friendly and smoking patio. All-Star Sports Grills on Bouquet Canyon, north of Plum Canyon.
Woodward Kitchen and Bath started in 1988 with my husband and myself as a mom and pop shop.
Lisa Woodward.
We started off with my husband and myself. We've grown from being a cabinet shop to being a full one-stop shop, so we can do the whole turnkey project.
Let Woodward Kitchen and Bath transform your Santa Clarita home.
We do everything in-house, can supply everything, and it's the same person you'll be working with from the start of your project to the end. That's what makes us more special than somebody else down the street.
Woodward Kitchen and Bath, woodwardkb.com.
Welcome back, friends. You are listening to the Grief Recovery Hour with Sharon Brubaker right here on KHTS, your hometown station. And my guest, Rick Ferrante, Home Care Services in Santa Clarita. And we've been talking through a variety of topics, which I absolutely love. Home care services, grief and home care services, grief and being the caretaker. Right now we're going to segue into Alzheimer's. I've been seeing so much on Alzheimer's, especially this week. So I would like to talk with you about, I saw a statistic that said there were about 5.7 million seniors, or not even seniors, even younger than that, are suffering with Alzheimer's, right? And that they're expecting it to double by 2050 to 14.7, I think is what they were expecting to absolutely double.
Yeah, and even more beyond that. It is incredibly worrisome.
Right.
This is a huge problem. Alzheimer's disease is of the top 10, it's the 6th leading cause of death, and of the top 10 in the United States, it's the only one that is not preventable. You can't prevent it. You cannot cure it. It's not curable, and you can't even slow it. There's nothing there for Alzheimer's. And what's happening is because of the aging population, which is exponentially exploding, the whole silver tsunami and everything else,
Right.
and people are being, having other medical issues be solved, right?
Right.
I mean, they're not dying of the heart attacks and strokes and things like that, which is great news. This is really a good news problem. But then now, as a result of that, so many are being affected with Alzheimer's, and there is just nothing there. And there are medications and so on that can deal with the symptoms, and it's really important to be diagnosed so that you understand what you're dealing with and whether it's Alzheimer's or something else.
Right.
But when that diagnosis is Alzheimer's, there is nothing there, and we need to be able to support people in our community, because 8 to 10 years is the average time somebody lives with that disease. 8
Wow.
to 10 years. And it is, obviously debilitating. It is a progressive disease that where people need assistance for a long period of time. This isn't like months.
Yes.
This is a long period of time where they physically can be very healthy, but cognitively, mentally have this disease that is creating a situation where people have to care for them.
Right.
And yes, it is a massive problem.
Stress. I see a lot of the stories I see on television that were dealing with Alzheimer's, when the news media pick them up, is always about the caretaker, the family members that are the caretakers, and the stress that it takes on them and the toll that it actually takes on them.
It goes back to what we talked about of those roles.
Right.
Okay. And we talked about becoming a caregiver.
Yeah.
Well, in this situation, even more than physically. Okay, so you can communicate with somebody, and maybe they have they're having limited mobility or something else. But when there's a cognitive issue, that person gets to the point where they in mid and late stages where they don't even know the person,
right?
Or the memory is just a real challenge. The anger, anxiety, fear, all these things. That is incredibly stressful for the person who is dealing with it, and anybody that's caring for that person, and in particular, if it's a family member who's known this person all their life and as what they were, and when they lose that cognitive ability, it is the most stressful thing. It is the worst. I can't even. Is the worst thing that I can think of in terms of disease-wise, because when that mental or cognitive issue happens, I mean, it's challenging to be able to know who that person is and being able to deal with it the way you've always have. That's why I've gotten involved a lot with the Alzheimer's Association.
Yes.
And here in Santa Clarita, the Alzheimer's Association and our organization really supports the association because they provide those two things. One, they provide research.
Yes.
Okay, so they get funds and they provide research to try to find something. We have to find a cure. We have to find something that'll even slow it down and hopefully prevent it someday. Otherwise, we're going to be our medical system's going to be bankrupt. There's just too many people. So we've got to find that with the research. The other thing the association does is provide resources, support groups, education, speakers, all kinds of things, a hotline. Call us, contact us. We can kind of guide you in the right direction, and that is one of the resources that we're always using is the Alzheimer's Association. So that's why we've gotten involved. I've gotten involved with the Walk to End Alzheimer's. It's going to be in October at Bridgeport Park, and for the last couple of years, I was the chair. I'm the team chair this year, team recruitment chair, and it's just important that we have both the funds to be able to do the research and to support the people that are dealing with it here today.
Yes,
so
every day dealing with it.
If there is a message, besides getting involved and coming out and helping support that, and just contact us if you want to be involved.
Right.
It's that look around you for yourself or anybody else out there, contact us for help.
Right.
Okay? You are not alone.
Yes.
There are many people that are dealing with this. There is no magic formula to make it go away.
Right.
But pick up the phone and call us. We'll help guide you in resources,
sure.
all kinds of resources that are professional resources like yourself.
Absolutely.
And others that will guide you towards, maybe it's care, maybe it's something else.
Yes.
But there are resources out there. Don't do this alone. It is tough.
It's very tough. And I often work with clients that when they've been given, the family member's been given the diagnosis diagnosis of Alzheimer's, and as they're dropping to their new normals, we're doing the grief process all the way along. So once we drop to that new normal and there's a loss there, we grieve that. And then we go, the day I walked in the room and Mom can't remember me, I grieve that. So we work it all the way through.
But you're not alone, and don't do it alone.
And don't do it alone.
And that will lift a lot of that stress off. If you could just
For sure.
just give us a call, we'll go from there.
Rick, you have been amazing. Wow, a wealth of information. Thank you so much. Again, I'm going to put Rick's information, Rick Ferrante with Home Care Services of Santa Clarita, in our Facebook Live comment box. I enjoyed this hour with each and every one of you, and we are here for anyone that is suffering from a broken heart. Thank you so much, and have a great day.